Lenora James. Age 57. I grew up on a small street in Savannah and moved to Ohio when I was 23. I worked 32 years as a school secretary. I raised 2 kids. I helped my husband, Daniel, with his little auto shop until his health made him slow down. We thought we had a quiet life. We had bills, a small pension, and a house with creaky floors. I liked my slow mornings and the way sunlight hit the kitchen table. I liked evenings when Daniel and I would sit on the back step and talk about nothing and everything. Life was ordinary, and that felt safe. But ordinary can break like thin glass. At my brother Tobias' wedding it shattered. Before I start, please do me a favor. If you like strong true feeling stories like this, subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button and turn on the notifications bell so you do not miss the next part. Drop in the comments which part of the country you are watching from so I know who is with me. Your support helps me tell more stories that matter. The church smelled of lilies and steam from too many casseroles. The hall where the reception was held looked like a small town had gathered to celebrate Tobias. He had always been the loud one, the one who could fill a room with laughter. His bride, Marceline, was quiet and bright and older than him by a few years. People said they were perfect together. I believed them. I believed in my brother. Daniel came with me, slow but steady. He had worn his navy suit even though he complained about the tie. He held my hand walking into the hall. My chest felt full. My daughter had called earlier that day and said she would try to come from Detroit. My son sent a picture of his new baby. I felt the kind of happiness that sits under your ribs and hums like an old radio. I did not know I was walking toward a moment that would make that hum go silent. After the vows we ate, we laughed, we danced. Tobias grabbed me and pulled me to the floor for a 2-step that nearly toppled me. Everyone cheered. At some point, I noticed Daniel leave the table. I thought he had gone to the restroom. I did not watch him walk away. I thought nothing of it. Later, as the sun leaned toward evening, I stepped outside for a breath of cold air. The parking lot hummed with cars and the distant sound of church music. I looked toward the side of the building where the dumpsters were hidden behind a chain-link fence. That is when I saw them. Daniel and my sister-in-law, the woman whose name was Janette, were standing close behind the bushes. They were not talking in the gentle way I knew. They were clinging to one another like people who had been holding on too tight for years. Daniel had his face buried near Janette's shoulder. My first thought was that he was helping her with something. Another part of me, the small, quiet part one hardly trusted, knew something else. The air in my chest went cold and the radio hum inside me stopped. My feet moved before my voice. I walked without sound across the gravel. My hands shook so badly I could not lift them to my face. I wanted to call out dear. I thought he would turn and grin at me. Instead he stood with the other woman and did not move. She leaned in and kissed him in the place where a wife knows a kiss or does not. I do not know how long I watched. Time did not move the way it always had. It stretched thin and long. I did not make a scene right away. I did not scream. I only stood, the world narrowing to their figures and the gravel beneath my shoes. I felt like glass. I wanted to run and I wanted to fall and I wanted to ask 1,000 small questions that would change everything. What were they doing? How long? Why here? Every answer was an arrow in the ribs. The music inside the reception floated out through the open door. A laugh from inside hit the thin night air, sweet and wrong. I thought of my life with Daniel, of the late nights at the shop, of the days we did not have enough. I thought of my children and the way they trusted us. All of it felt like a house of cards. Then Tobias came out. He walked toward Daniel and Janette with a steady step. For a moment I felt relief because my brother had always been a man who set things right. He stood a few feet away and looked at them like a man measuring a broken thing. I expected him to shout. I expected him to push Daniel away. I expected the kind of anger you read about in loud places. What happened next I could never have guessed. Tobias smiled. It was a small smile, not a grin and not cruel. He raised his glass, the light on it like a small sun, and said words I could not hear from where I stood. People inside would tell me later that the music inside stopped. Some would tell me that the room froze. I only remember the way Daniel looked at my brother, as if the man had become something impossible to read. I saw my daughter appear at the back door, her face white. I saw Mr. Owens from down the street stand and clutch his wife. I saw Junit step back and touch her mouth like she did not understand how the world had moved under her feet. Daniel did not move. He looked like a man in a photograph, trapped and unable to blink. My brother folded his hand into his jacket pocket like he had a folded paper there, like he kept secrets in the seams of his sleeves. He walked toward them slowly, the way a man walks when he means to take careful measure. He stopped 2 steps from Daniel. He looked at me. He did not look with the fierce rage I thought I would see. He looked like a man who had decided something. My heart beat loud in my ears. The people at the table were standing now, the murmur of voices coming from the hall slipping into the night like small waves. Someone called Tobias' name and he did not answer. He bent down and whispered something to my ear. His voice was low and steady and full of a calm that felt like a threat. He said 5 words I will never forget. What he said changed the whole room. It was not the words themselves that did it. It was how he said them, like a judge delivering a sentence and a blessing at once. Daniel went white. Junit began to cry. Tobias straightened up, lifted his glass again, and walked back inside as if everything was about to continue. I stood at the edge of the parking lot and watched the door close and the music restart. The laughter inside hit me like cold rain. I wanted to follow him. I wanted him to tell me what he had said. I wanted him to tell me what he was about to do. I wanted to know if my life would ever be the same. Inside the hall, people returned to their seats. The bride sat with a smile that did not reach her eyes. No one in the room yet knew what Tobias had whispered, and for a few slow seconds the world held its breath. I felt the sound of the bell in my chest. I took a step forward. My hand found the door handle. And then my brother did something that stopped me from opening it. He walked to the front of the room, raised his glass, and said his speech. He said words that made every head turn. He said something about family and truth and choosing your path. He looked straight at Daniel and smiled like he had always smiled when he forgave someone. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a small envelope. What was in that envelope made the room go very quiet. It made my knees weak. It made my hands forget how to hold my purse. It made me understand that whatever happened next would change us all. The room went so quiet it felt like the walls were listening. My brother Tobias stood at the center of the reception hall, the small white envelope in his hand trembling just a little. People always said Tobias never shook, not even when he got laid off back in the day, not even when our mama died. But that night, at his own wedding, I saw the tremor. I was still at the doorway, frozen, my hand on the metal handle. I could not walk in. I could not walk away. My world felt too small for all the weight sitting on my chest. Tobias cleared his throat. The microphone made a soft hum. "Family," he said, "I got something I need to share." A ripple moved through the tables like a breeze through tall grass. Forks paused. Eyes narrowed. The band in the corner looked at one another and slowly lowered their instruments. Then he opened the envelope. Inside was a folded piece of paper, creased as if it had been opened and read too many times. He unfolded it slowly. Too slow. Every second felt like he was peeling apart the skin of my life. I took one step inside. Just one. Enough to see Daniel's face. His skin had gone pale under the yellow lights. He had the look of a man who wished he could blend into the wall or vanish into the floor. Junit was not far from him. She was seated now, her hands shaking in her lap, tears sliding down her cheek. Marceline, the bride, sat beside her with her lips tight and her eyes so wide they looked like they would spill. Tobias held up the paper and said, "I found this 2 days ago. I was not going to bring it up today. But God must have his reasons." A few people gasped. Someone whispered, "Lord Jesus." He took a breath and read. It was a message. A printed email. From my husband. From Daniel. The date was 2 months old. The words were plain and sharp. It said he missed her. It said he loved her. It said he wished he had married her instead of living in a house full of quiet disappointment. It said her name. My sister-in-law. My brother's soon-to-be bride. The paper shook again in his hand. I stood there staring at Daniel as those words filled the room. A low, heavy sound escaped my throat before I even knew it was mine. The wedding guests were buzzing with whispers now. Someone said the devil is working tonight. Someone else said that poor woman. Someone else said Tobias better handle this. But Tobias was calm. That was the strangest part. His calm was the kind that scares people. The kind that tells you the storm is inside, not outside. He looked at Daniel and said, "You thought I would walk into a marriage blind. You thought I did not know what y'all were doing." The hall went dead silent. You could have heard a spoon hit the floor. I felt like the earth under my feet wasn't solid anymore. Everything I had trusted was pulled up like old carpet, and I was standing on bare cold cement. Daniel finally spoke. His voice cracked. "Tobias, please. Not here. Not here." My brother laughed. A short, deep laugh that did not match his face. "You been doing it here. In my life. In my home. In my family. So we handling it here." Marceline stood up then. Her wedding dress shimmered under the lights, but her face was full of tears. Tobias turned to her and said, "Baby, sit down. This ain't about you. Your heart is clean." But her heart did not look clean. She looked devastated, broken in a way that made me feel sorry and angry at once. Then Tobias turned back to Daniel. "I know men slip. I know people make mistakes. But you were family. You ate at my table. You called me brother." His voice lowered to a whisper. "I gave you my trust." Daniel's chest rose and fell fast. He said nothing else. Tobias folded the paper again and slid it back into the envelope. But he was not finished. He turned to the crowd and said, "Let me tell y'all something. Truth always finds its way to the light. It might take a day. It might take a year. But it always shows up." Then he pointed at Daniel. "And tonight, it showed up wearing your suit." A wave of gasps filled the room. Someone started crying. Someone else stood and walked out. I wanted to collapse. My knees were weak, my throat tight. I could not breathe steady. But then Tobias said something that twisted the whole night in a way none of us expected. He said, "This is not just about an affair. Tell them, Daniel. Tell them what you promised her." My heart stopped. My nails dug into my palm. Promised who? Promised what? Every eye in that room fell on Daniel. Even the children stopped talking. He did not answer. Tobias stepped closer, his voice low and steady. "Tell them what you were planning to do to her. To your own wife." My stomach dropped. My hands trembled. My ears filled with a loud ringing sound that blocked everything else out. What did Daniel promise her? What did he plan? What had my brother discovered? Tobias took another step toward him. "Tell them," he said. "Because if you do not say it, I will." Daniel lifted his eyes and looked straight at me. I had never seen a look like that on his face. Not guilt. Not shame. Fear. He whispered my name once. Soft. Shaking. Then Tobias said something that made the entire hall erupt. He said, "Daniel, tell my sister why you were planning to walk out on her next month." The room broke into gasps again. Chairs shifted. People stood. My heartbeat thudded in my ears. "Walk out on me? Next month? Leave me?" My legs went numb. The world swayed as though I were standing on a boat. I tried to speak, but no words came out. Tobias raised the envelope again like he had more inside it. Like the truth was not done yet. I felt the floor tilt under my feet. I felt my breath catch in my throat. I felt the world crack open one more time. Because my brother said 5 chilling words next. And those 5 words changed everything. He said, "Tell her about the money." The hall exploded with whispers. The lights felt too bright. My vision blurred. Money. What money? What was Daniel planning? I held the back of a chair, trying not to fall, as Tobias stared at Daniel with steady eyes. And just as Daniel opened his mouth to speak, the door behind me swung wide open. And someone walked in. Someone none of us expected. I spun around when the door flew open, and for a moment I thought my heart had stopped beating. The person who stepped in was not supposed to be anywhere near that wedding. Not that day. Not in that room. Not in that moment when my life was already cracking apart. It was my daughter, Zaria. She still had on her work uniform from the hospital in Detroit. Her badge hung sideways, and her eyes were wide and wild like someone who had run straight from a storm. Her curls were frizzy from sweat. She must have driven for hours. But it was not just the fact that she arrived. It was what she was holding in her hand. A small brown folder. Thick. Stuffed. Worn along the edges like someone had opened and closed it too many times. "Mama," she said, her voice trembling. "Mama, I need you to see something." The entire hall had gone silent. All eyes shifted from Daniel to my daughter. Even Tobias looked stunned. Even he did not expect this. Zaria walked straight to me. Her steps were slow, careful, like she was carrying something dangerous. She pressed the folder into my hands. Her fingers were trembling. "Mama," she whispered again. "I should have told you. I should have told you months ago. But I was scared. I did not want to break your heart." My throat tightened. I opened the folder with shaky fingers. Papers. Receipts. Printed emails. Bank statements. Notes. And something in the back, a document with a lawyer's letterhead. I could barely breathe. "Mama," she said softly. "Daddy met with a lawyer 2 months ago." My knees almost went out. Daniel gasped. A sharp, choked sound. Tobias stepped closer, face tight. The crowd leaned in without meaning to. Zaria continued, her voice cracking. "Mama." He was preparing to move everything into another name. Not your name. Not the family trust. Not even his kids. My blood turned cold. Daniel whispered, "Zaria, please don't do this." She ignored him. "Mama, he was planning to sign half the house and half of your retirement account over to her." She pointed at Junit. The hall erupted. People stood from their chairs. Someone shouted, "Oh no." Another woman cried out, "Lord have mercy." Marceline covered her mouth and sobbed. I felt my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Heat rushed up my neck. My hands shook as I flipped through the documents. There it was. His signature. Clear as the sun. A new property agreement. A draft of a bank transfer. Everything planned for next month. Next month. Daniel yelled, "It isn't what it looks like." I was going to cancel it. I swear to you I was going to stop it. But the words felt cheap. Paper thin. Lies falling apart in midair. My voice came out small and broken. "Daniel, why?" He took a step toward me, then stopped when Tobias moved between us like a shield. Daniel lifted his hands, pleading. I felt unseen, Lenora. I felt tired. I felt like life was passing me by. I blinked. Once. Twice. Unseen. I whispered. "I worked beside you for years. I stayed when times were hard. I held your hand through every sickness. I helped raise your kids and carry your burdens. And you tell me you felt unseen?" He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Then Tobias turned to him, anger finally cracking through his calm voice. "Tell the whole truth. Tell her you were planning to disappear after taking her money. Tell her you were planning to leave her with nothing." Junit sobbed into her hands. Tobias' wife looked like she might faint. Someone in the back muttered, "This is wickedness." Daniel pressed his palms to his face. "Stop," he whispered. "Stop." His voice broke. "I made a mistake. I made a terrible mistake." Then my daughter spoke again, soft, but shaking with rage. "No. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary. A mistake is losing your temper. Daddy, this was a plan." Her voice sliced through the room. "A plan to betray Mama. A plan to rob Mama. A plan to leave Mama alone after everything she gave you." Daniel dropped to his knees. Literally. Knees on the floor. Hands over his face. He looked like a man who had reached the bottom of a deep well. I felt my breath shaking inside my chest. I felt my hands tremble. I felt years of trust collapsing like old wood. Then Tobias whispered to me, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Lenora, that is not even the worst part." My head snapped toward him. My palms went cold. The papers in my hand felt heavy as bricks. "What do you mean?" I whispered. Tobias' jaw clenched. He looked at Daniel like he was staring at a stranger. "There is something else in that folder. Something I found last night. Something that explains the money. Something that explains the affair." A murmur rolled through the room like thunder. I felt my vision blur. I felt my lungs strain to take in air. Tobias continued. "I wanted to wait. I wanted tonight to be beautiful. But truth does not wait for the right time. It shows up when it wants." My hand tightened on the folder. Then he stepped closer and said quietly, "Lenora, there is one document in there that will change everything you thought you knew about your marriage." My heart stopped. "Everything I thought I knew?" He nodded once. Slowly. "Look in the back pocket of the folder." My fingers shook as they moved to the very back. A sealed envelope. Different from the rest. Thicker. Older. My breath caught. I tore it open. I pulled out the paper. I read the first sentence. And the ground under me disappeared. Because the document revealed something that should not have been possible. Something that rewrote 20 years of my life. Something Daniel had hidden from me. I stumbled back. Zaria grabbed my arm. The crowd gasped as if one body. My voice cracked as I whispered, "No, this can't be real." But it was. And Daniel knew it was. He lifted his head, eyes wet, face broken. "Lenora, please. I can explain." But I could not hear anything else. Because the paper in my hand told me a truth that shattered everything. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the paper. The words on the page blurred, then sharpened, then blurred again as tears filled my eyes. I felt like the air around me had thinned, like I was standing in a hallway with all the doors shut and no way out. Zaria squeezed my arm. "Mama, what is it?" she whispered. I couldn't answer. My throat locked. Everyone in the hall leaned forward. Even the children stopped moving. Tobias stood still, watching me with eyes full of anger and pain and something else, pity. That scared me the most. I took a deep breath and looked at the page again. It was a medical document. A paternity disclosure. Dated 5 years ago. My vision went dark around the edges as I read the next line. Child tested, Christopher James. Alleged father, Daniel James. Biological relationship. Excluded. No paternal match. My grandson. My little baby boy. My son's first child. The child Daniel held. The child he bragged about. The child he claimed carried his eyes. He was not Daniel's grandson. Daniel had known for 5 years. For 5 years. The room spun. My breath caught in my throat. My knees almost buckled. "Mama," Zaria whispered again, her voice trembling. "What does it say?" I lifted the paper with shaking hands. "Your father," I said, my voice cracking, "took a paternity test behind our backs. The hall exploded into whispers. He took a test, I continued, choking on the words, to check if the baby was his son's. And he found out. He found out the baby wasn't related to him. Zoria's face drained of color. Tobias closed his eyes like the truth slapped him. Daniel stood up slowly from the floor, his face pale, his jaw trembling. Lenora, please. Let me explain before you believe the worst. But the worst had already arrived. I stared at him, my voice hollow. Why didn't you tell our son? Why didn't you tell me? Why hide this? He covered his face. Because I didn't want to break him. I didn't want to ruin his marriage. He was already struggling. I thought, maybe the truth would only destroy everything. Tobias stepped forward. Destroy everything. Brother, look around. You already did. But Daniel wasn't looking at him. He was crying now, loud and broken. I thought if I could build a new life with someone else. His voice cracked. If I could just start fresh. Maybe I could escape all of it. I felt a pain deep in my chest. Worse than the affair, worse than the money, worse than the lies. Escape all of it. All of it meant me. Our home. Our marriage. Our family. My hands trembled. I felt myself falling inside my own body. Zoria turned to him, fire in her eyes. So you were going to leave Mama? Take half the house? Take her retirement? And go build a new family with her? She pointed straight at Junit. Junit sobbed harder. I never asked him to do that. I swear I didn't. He promised me things. He told me he was unhappy. He said he needed peace. Peace. Zoria snapped. Breaking my mother is peace to you? Daniel shook his head violently. No. No. That's not what I meant. I was confused. I made bad choices. I didn't know how to fix things. The crowd murmured. Some people were crying. Some shaking their heads. Others staring at Daniel like they had never seen him before. But Tobias wasn't done. Not even close. He stepped beside me and placed a steady hand on my shoulder. Sis, that isn't the only secret in that folder. My heart dropped again. There's something else? I whispered. He nodded. My legs felt weak. My breath came in short gasps. Tobias continued, his voice low but carrying across the hall. Lenora. He didn't just test the baby. The room stilled. He tested something else too. My stomach tightened. My palms went cold. Daniel whispered, Tobias, don't. Please don't. But Tobias didn't stop. He looked me directly in the eyes. Lenora. He also tested himself. I frowned. Tested himself? For what? Tobias hesitated for the first time that night. He swallowed. Then he said the words that cracked something deep in me. Sis. Daniel took a DNA test. To see if he was related to you. The hall burst into chaos. Shouts, gasps, screams, chairs moving, someone nearly fainting. I felt the world tilt sideways. My heart slammed against my ribs. What? I whispered. Why? Why would he do that? Why would he? Daniel shouted. I was scared. I didn't know if I could trust anything anymore. I didn't know what was real. I didn't know. Enough. Tobias thundered. Silence fell again. Everyone stared at me. Everyone waited. But I could not breathe. I could not think. I could only hear one thing. Daniel doubted me. Me. After 30 years. After everything. Zoria looked like she wanted to hit him. Junit looked horrified. Marceline was crying so hard she could barely stay seated. Tobias stepped back, giving me space. And for the first time since that night began, my voice returned. I folded the paper. I lifted my head. I looked Daniel in the eyes. Tell me the truth, Daniel. My voice was steady now. Cold. Quiet. Final. Why did you test yourself? Against me? Daniel's lips trembled. His hands shook. And what he whispered next was not an answer. It was another secret. One that made the entire room fall silent. One that shook my bones. He said, "Lenora, I think someone in your family has been lying to you your entire life." And before I could ask what he meant, the doors opened again. And the person who walked in next held the key to the biggest truth of all. When the doors swung open again, the entire reception hall turned as one body. Conversations stopped mid-breath. Even the children grabbed the edges of their chairs. The person who stepped inside was the last person I ever expected to see at my brother's wedding. The last person I expected to walk into a storm like this. It was my older cousin, Delphine. Tall, calm, sharp-eyed Delphine. 70 years old. The woman who knew every family secret before anyone else. The woman who had disappeared from our lives for almost a decade. And she was holding an envelope. A thick one. Stuffed with papers. My stomach twisted. Delphine said nothing at first. She just walked toward me, her heels clicking steadily against the polished floor. When she reached me, she placed the envelope in my hands like she was putting down a heavy stone she had carried too long. "Lenora," she said quietly, "it is time." The hall buzzed with whispers. Time for what? I breathed. Delphine closed her eyes, took a slow breath, and said, "Time for the truth your mama never told you." The room froze. My skin went cold. My fingers went numb. I felt the floor shift under my feet. Mama. My mama. What truth? Daniel stepped back like her presence alone scared him. Tobias rubbed his face with both hands. Zarya stood still, holding her breath. Delphine looked around the hall, then at me. "Let me start from the beginning," she said softly, her voice trembling for the first time in my life. "Your mama told me to protect you. And I did. But maybe I protected you too much." My throat tightened. I could barely breathe. Delphine continued. "When you were born, your mama was already sick. We all knew she would not live long. Before she died, she called me into her room and handed me 3 things. One was a letter. The second was your birth certificate. The third was a file from the hospital." My heartbeat pounded so loudly I could hear it in my ears. Delphine reached into the envelope and pulled out the folded letter. "Your mama told me that your father was not the man everyone believed he was." Gasps filled the room. I froze. Every muscle in my body locked. "What are you talking about?" I whispered. "Mama always said." Delphine shook her head gently. "She told you what she thought would keep you safe." She handed me the letter. My hands trembled so hard the paper fluttered. "Read it, Lenora." I unfolded the letter slowly. Mama's handwriting. Slanted. Soft. Shaking. I had not seen it in years. My vision blurred as I read. "My sweet Lenora, if you are reading this, I am gone. I need you to know the truth, because lies can sink a heart that was meant to rise." My knees weakened. Someone behind me whispered, "Oh Lord." Another said, "This family got storms tonight." I kept reading. "The man who raised you is not your father. Your real father was a man I loved before I met the one who raised you. But he was married. And his family. They did not want you. They threatened me. They threatened you. So I told everyone a different story. I did what I had to do to protect you." My breath caught. My vision blurred again. "Your real father is still alive. And he has family. Family that does not know about you. Family that might not want you to exist." This truth could destroy things, so I begged Delphine to hide it until the right time. I pray she did. "I hope you forgive me. Love. Mama." The room went so silent it felt like the lights themselves were listening. Zarya grabbed my shoulders. "Mama. Oh my God. Mama." Tobias looked heartbroken. Junit was crying openly. Marceline sat with both hands over her mouth. But Daniel looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. Delphine touched my arm gently. That DNA test he took, she said, was not to see if he was related to you out of suspicion. It was because he found this same letter 10 months ago. A shiver ran through me. He found the letter? I asked, my voice thin as smoke. Delphine nodded. Yes. I left it in the attic years ago. I did not think anyone would ever find it. My knees buckled. Zarya caught me. Daniel whispered, trembling, I didn't test myself because I doubted you. I tested myself because I didn't know who you truly belonged to. And I didn't want to be the last person to know something about the woman I married. My heart cracked again. But in a different way. A deeper way. Delphine stepped back and pointed to the envelope in my hand. And the hospital document in there. The one your mama hid. Has the name of your real father. My blood froze. Name. My real father. After 57 years. I opened the envelope with shaking fingers. I slid the final paper out. I saw the name. And the world tilted. Because the name on that paper was a name I had heard my whole life. A name spoken with respect. A name surrounded by power, money, and danger. A name that belonged to a man who lived less than 15 minutes from that wedding. My real father. And then, as if the universe wanted to tear the night open even wider, the doors behind us opened for the third time. And he walked in. The man whose name was on my birth record. The man who was never supposed to know I existed. The man who held the key to who I truly was. His eyes met mine. And the truth, finally, began to breathe. He stood in the doorway like the past had grown legs and walked straight into the present. A tall, silver-haired man with a presence that filled the whole reception hall. People who had been whispering stopped mid-sentence. Someone in the back gasped. Someone near the tables muttered, I know that man. Ain't that Mr. Langston? Mr. Clayton Langston. A wealthy landowner. A man whose name carried weight in 3 counties. A man powerful enough to shut down businesses with a phone call. A man known for charity on Sundays and secrets on weekdays. I had seen him before only on the news or in passing at the farmer's market. Big rings, expensive boots, shoulders that seemed too proud for his age. People always said he came from old money and older sins. But nothing prepared me for the sight of him locking eyes with me. Not with confusion. Not with fear. But with recognition. Deep, painful recognition. My breath caught in my throat. Zarya whispered, Mama. He looks like he knows you. Tobias stiffened beside me, his hands balling into fists. Delphine stepped forward as if ready to shield me. But Mr. Langston raised one hand slowly. Calm, respectful, heavy with meaning. Lenora, he said softly, his voice deep and steady. You've grown into your mother's face. The room erupted into murmurs. My heart slammed against my ribs. How do you know my name? I whispered. He took a slow step forward. Then another. Because, he said, I have known about you for a long time. Longer than you think. My hands trembled. My vision blurred. Delphine gasped. No. Clayton. Don't tell me. He nodded once. Yes. Delphine. I knew. Not everything. But enough. Enough to lose sleep for years. Enough to wonder if my choices had destroyed more than one life. Enough to wish I had done things differently. I felt my knees weaken. Zarya steadied me. You knew about me? But Mama said. He lifted a hand as if to slow the storm. Your mother and I were young, he said quietly. Too young for the world we lived in. And when she got pregnant, my family made it clear she was not welcome in ours. The room went cold. Not welcome. Not safe. Not allowed. A pain cut through my chest. So Mama left to protect me, I whispered. He nodded. Yes. And I let her. His voice shook then, just slightly. I was a coward back then. I let them push her away. My father, my brothers, they made threats. And instead of fighting for her, I ran. I let her suffer alone. Delphine bowed her head, fighting tears. I asked your mother to let me see you, he continued. Just once. But she refused. She said she didn't want my world to swallow you. My throat tightened. What world? I whispered. He hesitated. Then he spoke the truth that changed everything again. My family built their wealth on things you don't want to know about. Debt. Secrets. Blackmail. Old deals made in the dark. A wave of murmurs spread through the hall. We cleaned it up in public, he said. But behind closed doors. The poison stayed. I blinked back tears. I felt like the floor was rocking under me. He took another step closer. When your mother passed, he said, I wanted to search for you. But Delphine hid the truth. And I thought, maybe that was for the best. Delphine bowed her head in guilt. I thought I was protecting her, she whispered. Then Mr. Langston's eyes shifted. Past me. Toward Daniel. Coldness filled his voice. But then he found the letter. Daniel froze. You knew. I whispered, turning to him. Daniel's face crumpled. I didn't know if it was true. I didn't know if it mattered. I didn't know where you came from. And I didn't know if your past would swallow us. Mr. Langston stepped forward sharply. So you ran a DNA test behind her back, he said. To protect yourself. Not her. Daniel's eyes filled with tears. I panicked, he whispered. I felt like everything in our life was slipping out of my hands. The baby, our son's marriage, the money problems, your distance. My distance. I whispered. He nodded weakly. You were changing, Lenora. Growing colder. Quieter. Carrying something I couldn't reach. I turned away. Because he was right. I had been changing. Not from secrets. Not from lies. But from loneliness. Mr. Langston's voice softened. Lenora. You look just like her. Your mother. And I have walked around this world for 57 years knowing I had a daughter out there somewhere. A daughter who didn't even know my name. My head spun. My breath hitched. I looked up at him, voice barely a whisper. Why did you come tonight? He swallowed hard. Because I heard the truth was spilling out. And I could not let you drown alone in lies. When you deserve the truth in daylight. Someone in the hall whispered, this feels like a movie. Another said, Lord, this woman been through too much in one night. Then Mr. Langston motioned to the envelope still in my hand. There is one more paper in there, he said. Take it out. My fingers shook as I reached inside. A property deed fell into my palm. I blinked. Confused. This is land. He nodded. 50 acres. Yours. In your name. Signed 20 years ago. I stared at him in shock. Why would you do that? Why would you give me land? He took a slow breath. Because I knew one day you would find out who you were. And I wanted you to have something that came from me. Even if I was not strong enough to claim you back then. My heart cracked open. Slow and painful. The room was still. Breathless. I stepped toward him. One small step. Then another. His eyes glistened. I am not here to take anything from you, he said. Not your family. Not your name. Not your life. I am here to tell you. I never stopped wondering if you were safe. I never stopped praying for you. I never stopped loving the child I could never hold. My lips trembled. Do you want to know me? I whispered. His voice broke. More than anything. The room fell silent again. But before I could speak, before I could reach for him, before I could understand this new truth, Daniel stood up. His face was red. Shaking. Furious. Enough, he snapped. Enough of this. She is my wife. You cannot just walk in and claim her life. You cannot rewrite everything. She belongs with me. The entire hall gasped. Mr. Langston's eyes narrowed. Tobias stepped forward fast. Zoria grabbed my hand. And I felt something rise inside me. Not fear. Not confusion. But strength. A new kind of strength. Because now, I knew the truth about my husband. About my mother. About my father. About myself. This night was breaking me open. So I could rebuild. Daniel's voice cracked through the hall like thunder. She belongs with me. Every head turned toward him. Every whisper died. Even the band stopped breathing. He was shaking from head to toe. His fists were tight. His face was red with fear, anger, and something uglier, desperation. But I felt nothing for him in that moment. No fear. No guilt. No shame. No loyalty. Just a deep, steady calm rising in my chest like slow dawn. Tobias stepped forward, blocking Daniel from coming anywhere near me. Watch yourself. Daniel. You done enough damage tonight. Zoria stood at my other side, her hand gripping mine so tight it almost hurt. Mama, don't listen to him. Not after everything. But Daniel took another step, voice cracking. Lenora, please. Baby, please. This man shows up out of nowhere and you're gonna let him just. He pointed at Mr. Langston, his hand trembling. Just take your mind, your heart, your history. Mr. Langston lifted his chin, eyes cold. I'm not here to take anything. I'm here to give her the truth. Daniel scoffed, a bitter sound. Truth. You think coming in here with land and papers makes you her father? You think she needs you? He stepped closer toward me, chest heaving. Lenora needs me. She always has. I'm her husband. The hall buzzed with whispers. But I turned to him slowly and said, in a voice quiet enough to make the room lean closer, you were my husband. Daniel froze. My words hung between us like a blade. I continued. You planned to leave me next month. You wrote love letters to my sister-in-law. You took money behind my back. You tested my grandson. You tested me. And you wanted to build a new life with another woman, while taking half of everything I ever worked for. Daniel opened his mouth, but no sound came out. I took a step toward him. My voice stayed calm. I was your safety net. Your nurse. Your cook. Your comfort. But you never saw me as your partner. You only saw me as the one thing that would always stay. Even when you gave me nothing to stay for. His face crumpled. Lenora. I'm begging you. But I shook my head. No. Tonight, you taught me something. You showed me how alone I've been in my own marriage. You showed me how far you were willing to go to erase me. My voice trembled, but not with weakness. With release. I'm done shrinking myself to fit beside a man who was planning to walk away anyway. The hall erupted with soft gasps. Daniel staggered back like the words physically struck him. Lenora, don't do this. Please. I messed up. I know I did. But I can change. I'll undo everything. I'll cancel the papers. I'll cut ties with her. Just don't leave me. Please don't leave me. His sobs echoed across the room. But for the first time in years, I saw him clearly. He wasn't sorry for betraying me. He was sorry he got caught. Before I could respond, Mr. Langston stepped forward. You don't get to beg now, he said quietly. You had every chance to honor her. And you burned them. Daniel glared at him with raw hatred. You. This is your fault. All of this. Why did you even come? Why didn't you stay gone like you were supposed to? Mr. Langston's face didn't move. Because she deserves truth. Not imprisonment. Daniel lunged forward. But Tobias caught him by the arm so fast the whole room flinched. Don't you dare raise your hand in this hall, Tobias warned. Not tonight. Not ever. Daniel struggled for a moment, then stopped. His body collapsed inward, like a man who realized the world he built out of lies had finally caught fire. The room was silent. Then Mr. Langston turned to me. Lenora, if you want me to leave, I will. If you want me to stay, I will stay. I only came here to stand where your truth could finally breathe. With or without me in your life. My eyes burned. My throat tightened. My heart ached. I looked at him. At the man who knew of me. Wondered about me. Wished for me. Feared for me. Prayed for me. And without fully meaning to, I whispered, I need time. He nodded, eyes soft. As long as you need. But the room was not done unraveling yet. Because suddenly, a loud voice rose from the back. It was my son, Jamal. He had just arrived. Out of breath, eyes wide, face flushed like he'd driven through the night. Mama! He yelled, pushing through the crowd. I came as fast as I could. And I brought something you need to see. Another envelope. This one sealed. This one official. My heart pounded. Jamal held it out with shaking hands. Mama. This letter arrived at my house this morning. From your bank. My stomach turned. Bank. I tore the envelope open. Inside was a notice. A balance transfer request. Signed with Daniel's signature. But not to Junit. Not to him. To a third name. One I didn't recognize. I looked up at Daniel, confused, horrified. Who is this? Who are you sending my retirement to? Daniel sank to the floor, burying his face in his hands. Zoria gasped. Tobias cursed under his breath. Junit shook her head violently. I don't know her, I swear. But Daniel's voice finally came out. Broken. Defeated. Crushed. She's my daughter. The room exploded. People shouted. Someone screamed. Chairs moved. The bride sobbed into her hands. I staggered back. My mind went blank. Your daughter. Another child. With who? When? How long? Daniel looked up, eyes red and hollow. Before I met you. I didn't know she existed until this year. When she reached out. I wanted to help her. I wanted to give her something. A beat of silence. Then he whispered. I didn't know how to tell you. About her. About the affair. About the money. About any of it. So I lied. And I kept lying. Until the lies started swallowing me whole. My chest tightened. My breath shook. The truth wasn't done burying me. Not even close. The hole felt too small, too bright, too full of truths that cut like glass. Daniel knelt on the floor, his face buried in his hands. My son Jamal stood beside me, shaking, the bank letter still clutched in his fingers. Zoria held my arm like she was afraid I might collapse. Tobias stood guard between me and the man who had broken our family. Junit sobbed quietly at a corner table. Mr. Langston watched me with eyes full of sorrow and patience. And I felt strangely calm. Not numb. Not lost. Not broken. Just calm. Like a storm had finally passed, and all that was left was truth lying in pieces across the ground. I looked at Daniel. My husband. The man I built a life with. The man I trusted. The man who had betrayed me in so many quiet ways that I did not even notice the cracks until they burst open. He had cheated. He had planned to leave. He had tested my family without telling me. He had taken steps to steal from me. And now I learned he had another child, a daughter, whose existence he hid until the house of lies came crashing down. I stepped away from him. He looked up slowly, tears streaking down his face. Lenora. Please don't walk away. Please. I can fix this. I can fix everything. I shook my head gently. No. Daniel. You can only fix what you admit. And you've been hiding from the truth for so long. You don't even remember what honesty feels like. His lips quivered. He reached out a shaky hand. Baby. I love you. Zoria stepped forward in front of me. No you don't, she said firmly. You love what Mama did for you, not who she is. The room murmured in agreement. Daniel lowered his hand. I took a slow breath and finally spoke the words I had been holding in my chest for years. Daniel. I stayed with you through every illness, every struggle, every loss. I worked beside you. I built a home beside you. I carried this marriage on my back when you stopped lifting your share. And I did it because I believed you were a man worth fighting for. My voice tightened. But today, you showed me I have been fighting alone. Daniel shook his head, sobbing. No, please. Lenora. Don't do this. Don't leave me like this. Don't. I stopped him with a raised hand. Daniel. I'm not leaving you. The room gasped. Even Tobias looked confused. Zoria turned to me sharply. Mama? I swallowed hard. I'm not leaving you. Because you already left me. You left me in your heart long before today. And I can't hold on to someone who stopped holding on to me. A heavy hush swept across the hall. I continued, my voice steady as stone. So hear me clearly. I am choosing peace. I am choosing strength. I am choosing myself. And choosing myself means... I took a deep breath. I am done being your wife. Daniel broke. Right there on that wedding hall floor, he broke into quiet, helpless sobs. Tobias placed a hand on my shoulder, proud and steady. Zoria cried softly, relief and pain mixing in her tears. Jamal looked at me with respect I had never seen before in his eyes. I turned then, slowly, toward Mr. Clayton Langston. He stood tall, hands folded in front of him, waiting for my choice. Clayton, I said quietly. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if I'm ready to face everything that comes with your world. Your name. Your history. He nodded, patient. Take all the time you need, Lenora. I'm not here to rush you. I'm here to stand with you. Not in front of you. Not behind you. But beside you. My eyes softened. I don't want anything from you. Not your money. Not your land. Not your name. He nodded. I only want one thing, I said. Truth. Honesty. And a chance to know the part of my life Mama hid from me. A warm, quiet smile spread across his face. That's all I ever hoped for. Then he stepped closer and said with a trembling voice, if you'll have me in your life, in any way at all, you'll never walk alone again. Tears filled my eyes. But this time, they were not tears of pain. They were tears of release, of freedom, of a door finally opening after decades of silence. I nodded once. We can start slow. A conversation at a time. A meeting at a time. A truth at a time. His shoulders dropped in relief. Thank you, Lenora. I turned back to the room. Everyone watched me, waiting. Even Marceline, Tobias' bride, stood tall beside him, her eyes full of pride for how her husband protected his sister. I stepped forward. I want to say something, I said. The hall quieted. I looked at all of them. Every face. Every witness to the night my life cracked wide open. Tonight was painful. Tonight was heavy. Tonight broke things that needed breaking. But it also revealed something I forgot long ago. I am stronger than the people who tried to break me. The crowd murmured in agreement. Some clapped softly. Some wiped tears. I lifted my head higher. And now that the truth has finally come out, I am free. Free to heal. Free to grow. Free to rebuild the life I deserve. I turned toward the exit, Tobias and my children walking with me. And as I reached the door, I said the final words of the night. This chapter of my life is over. A new one begins now. Then I stepped out into the cool night air, feeling lighter, stronger, and finally whole. If you enjoyed this emotional story and want more powerful stories like this, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notification bell so you never miss another episode. And don't forget to drop a comment telling me where you are watching from so I know who is with me. Thank you for listening.